What was it like growing up here?
Oh, wonderful, because it was small and we knew everybody and what they did and what they liked. I went to a Presbyterian
Academy,
school here in town. Miss Mary McKinnon, who was Graham's aunt,
her husband, Graham,
had the first grade.
It was at Palmer.
Palmer Elementary School. But it was wonderful. Good friends. And I really didn't know the church children until I started to school, because I was a Methodist.
So tell me about what Defuniak Springs was like then.
Oh, the small stories were wonderful and were owned by people I loved.
The stores, yeah. Mm-hmm. And do you remember what stores were downtown when you were a child?
What were your favorites?
W.K. Jennings.
The Jennings store, yeah.
And Y store.
Did you ever go to King and Company?
King and Company, yes. They were here too.
You've seen a lot of changes in Defuniak.
Oh, many changes. But it's the idea of a small town stayed about the same.
Paving Circle Drive, didn't you and Kay, who was Judge Gillis's daughter, y'all sat where Kim Winterberg lives now?
Yeah.
Y'all sat right there at the stoop and watched them lay the concrete, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you think you were high class then because y'all were getting a paved road?
It was wonderful.
Tell them about the Campbells. We'll start since they were here first. My granddaddy's family.
Yes, and we have the history of Walton County.
His original manuscript, but they came here to start small sheep plantations. Is that not right? That's what I remember. And then the Civil War disrupted all of that because it was built on slavery.
Right.
They all owned. Colonel McKinnon, her grandfather-in-law, owned about 85 slaves, I think. The Campbells only had house slaves because they were judges. They didn't have the plantations, but they were burned by carpetbaggers. In fact, Ellen, the slave we were talking about that you remember, who was in her 90s when you were a small child, and she used to tell you all the stories about when, this is before she became a Campbell, of course, that when the freed slaves, the disbanded Union troops, she watched as they came through and burned a lot of the McKinnons' small plantation houses, not like the grand things in Mississippi, but they burned them all down. And they left Colonel McKinnon's, because he had been left behind, the old man. He was 85, I think. And when they burst through the doors and saw him sitting in his chair, and he had his Seminole War saber, and he pulled it out, they thought, here's this 6'6", 85-year-old man. They left his house alone, and it was in that chair he was sitting right there, that Viking chair. And she remembers Ellen, who witnessed it all, told her about it. But like I said, you don't tell that story much anymore. But do you remember Ellen?
I remember Ellen, who lived with Aunt Julia Monroe.
They were still living. There were former Campbell slaves that still lived with the family when she was a child. But that's what always fascinated me, is that she is this link to this. This woman was not just born into slavery. She was 20 years old when the Yankees came, 25. And she remembers her, which is just, it blows my mind every time. But you're the last link to all that. You talked about people coming from the country, horse and buggy.
Yeah.
And you remembered that. And there were very few automobiles when you were a child. Your father had a Model T, right? Okay. What changes what has amazed you the most? Because you've gone from horse and buggy to the space race, to Wi-Fi, which you still try to get me to explain to you, and I can't do it. She tried to take a computer course when she was about 85, and it was the only class you ever dropped, wasn't it, Bumby? You said you couldn't get it. And didn't the professor say, Miss Jones, I think you might just want to give up on this? It was a year ago that we were told that she had taken to bed, for lack of a better word, she had taken to bed, and they said, well, this is probably it.
Yeah.
You know, these are the signs, and this,
Right.
I thought, don't count her out, though.
Yeah.
But a month later, she was up again, she was walking again, and she still walks with me behind her through the house.
Good
She
for
just
her.
doesn't stop. That's what's so remarkable about her. What was your favorite car that you and Granddaddy had? It was in the 50s. Because you let the maid use it, didn't you?
No.
Yeah, Cleo. You told that it was that convertible. What did it look like?
Oh my goodness.
You remember that we talked about it not too long ago. You had a convertible. Wasn't it an Oldsmobile convertible?
Well, it came from the Chevrolet place.
Yeah, that your brother had, or the Rivards had then. But she told a story about it was her favorite, and Cleo, who used to cook here, loved it. And she let Cleo take it home for the weekend, and Cleo lived in Douglas Crossroads.
Oh my.
And she got a lot of calls from people that thought that Cleo had taken off with her car. Do you remember that?
Yes.
But I think that was your favorite. It had red interior, red seats. I know the car you hated the most was that yellow and black one that Granddaddy had,
Yeah.
that he thought was just the height of sophistication, and you hated it.
How about favorite presidents? That
Who-
covers a lot of ground.
I think your favorite presidents would be Roosevelt, Carter, and Clinton.
FDR.
FDR,
Yeah.
and Obama.
And then no, not. He
No.
came so much.
I know he was
later.
asking about your favorite presidents. He was one of them.
Oh yeah.
Not just from the dawn, from your childhood, but FDR is her favorite.
What was it? Because I've always admired him. What was it like living during the FDR years?
What was it like having FDR as a president?
We loved him and thought he was wonderful. And even when he thought he might run for a third term, we would be
Supportive of it,
agreeable.
yeah. Because there was no other president they would have allowed
Yeah.
to run a third, fourth. But yeah, but you do talk about him a lot.
Yeah.
Well, he was brilliant. He was a great speaker, a great actor. He fit the time.
He did. He was what we needed at the time.
He fit the time. Growing up, who influenced you?
Judge Gillis,
Judge Gillis.
because I was almost a part of that family.
Yeah.
So I loved that family.
And Miss Jennings that owned the store.
Yes. He owned the store where my father worked.
What do you look forward to?
Just my grandchildren. One of the little girls was
Just
Here.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bethany.
Right.
I enjoy their lives now. Just watching them
Yeah.
and
She's-
seeing what they become.
And she just accepts each day for what it, and she doesn't wallow, like, she's lost her children.
Right.
And she grieves, but it doesn't define her. That doesn't mean she grieves less than anybody else.
Right.
But she goes to bed and she wakes up and she just starts the day. She accepts it on its terms and her terms. It doesn't. What do you miss?
From the old
I
days.
driving.
Oh, that's what. But from the old days, I know you miss Armistice Day.
Yeah. Oh,
They
that
love-
was a great
Yeah.
day in the town. We just took a whole day off from
Wander,
everything.
everybody, and fireworks, and people set up little, we call them kiosks now, around. And she said, and everybody just became one big family on that day, celebrating. I guess that was the end of the big war, the Great War.
Yeah.
Then they had a Second World War, so armistice didn't mean as much anymore.
Right.
But what else do you miss about just the way people would get together, right? People don't do that. Y'all had your little friend groups with the Stinsons, the Campbells, the Bakers, the Reams, and they
Met
would,
here at night to sing.
and then they would all go to little parties at each other's houses all the time throughout the week, and they all sort of lived their lives together, and people don't. She talked about how people don't gather anymore. They'd have, in the daytime, everybody would have club, what they called club, which was playing cards, and so everybody was just, it seemed to be closer. But people are closer in different ways now. It's just their technology.
I lost 2 daughters in 1 year. And that was a bad time for me.
Yes.
And you've outlived 2 husbands. I'm working on getting her a 3rd.
If you had some advice to pass on to young people today, how to live their lives, what would you say?
How to live their lives with love. Because so many people have forgotten that.
Yeah.